In the spring of 1944, as Europe braced for what many believed would be the decisive invasion of Nazi-occupied France, German commanders were convinced they knew where the blow would fall. Their maps pointed toward the narrow waters of the Pas-de-Calais, the closest point between Britain and the continent. It seemed the obvious choice. Shorter supply lines, faster crossings, and ideal conditions for a massive amphibious assault all supported that conclusion. Yet while countless German officers studied intelligence reports and prepared for an attack that never came, they were unknowingly watching one of the most elaborate military illusions in history. By early 1944, the Allies faced an immense challenge. Opening a Western front was essential to relieve pressure on the Soviet Union and accelerate Germany's defeat. However, the success of the invasion depended on one critical factor: surprise. If the German High Command correctly identified the landing site before Allied forces reached shore, they could rapidly concentrate armored divisions and infantry against the vulnerable beachheads. A failed invasion might delay liberation for months or even years. Rather than relying solely on secrecy, Allied planners chose a far more ambitious approach. They decided not just to hide the real invasion, but to convince Germany that an entirely different invasion was coming somewhere else. This deception effort became known as Operation Fortitude, one of the central elements of the broader strategic deception plan called Operation Bodyguard. The objective was straightforward in theory, but extraordinarily difficult in practice. German intelligence needed to believe that the main Allied assault would strike the Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. To achieve that, the Allies built an army that existed almost entirely in appearance. The fictional formation was known as the 1st United States Army Group, or FUSAG. On paper, it appeared to be a powerful force preparing for the largest amphibious operation ever attempted. Its supposed commander was General George S. Patton, one of America's most aggressive and respected battlefield leaders. To German analysts, Patton's assignment made perfect sense. If the Allies intended to launch their primary offensive, surely they would place one of their most capable generals in command. The illusion extended far beyond paperwork. Across southeastern England, inflatable Sherman tanks were positioned in open fields where enemy reconnaissance aircraft might spot them. Wooden aircraft lined improvised airfields. Dummy landing craft crowded rivers and coastal areas. From the air, these decoys created the convincing impression of enormous military preparations. Meanwhile, military engineers carefully arranged camps, vehicle tracks, storage depots, and supply dumps to reinforce the deception. Even mundane details received attention. Roads appeared heavily used, equipment was repositioned regularly, and activity around the fake installations mimicked the routines of a genuine army preparing for combat. The deception did not stop with physical objects. Allied radio operators generated thousands of realistic wireless messages that simulated communications between units that did not actually exist. German signals intelligence intercepted these transmissions exactly as intended. Every intercepted message seemed to confirm what German analysts already suspected. A massive invasion force was assembling opposite the Pas-de-Calais. Perhaps the most valuable element of Operation Fortitude, however, involved human intelligence. The British double-cross system had successfully turned numerous German agents operating in Britain into double agents working for the Allies. Instead of sending accurate information back to Berlin, these agents fed carefully crafted reports that blended truth with deception. Because many of these spies had previously earned Germany's confidence, their reports carried tremendous credibility. Each piece of false information supported the next. Inflatable tanks matched radio traffic matched spy reports aligned with aerial photographs. None of these elements alone would have been convincing. Together, they formed a remarkably coherent picture that reinforced German expectations. As June approached, German commanders remained alert for an invasion. but their attention stayed fixed on the wrong coastline. Although some officers questioned whether Normandy might also be threatened, the prevailing belief inside the German High Command remained that any landing there would merely serve as a diversion. The decisive assault, they believed, would still come at Pas-de-Calais. Then, on June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. Thousands of ships crossed the English Channel while airborne divisions descended behind German defenses. The invasion was enormous, yet remarkably, many senior German leaders hesitated to commit their strongest reserve formations. Rather than viewing Normandy as the main operation, significant portions of the German command structure continued to expect another, even larger landing farther north. The deception had become so convincing that Operation Fortitude continued influencing German decisions even after Allied soldiers had secured footholds on French soil, critical, armored divisions that might have been rushed. Immediately toward Normandy remained positioned near Pas-de-Calais. German commanders feared moving them too soon, believing they would expose the true invasion point if a second assault appeared. That hesitation bought the Allies valuable time during the most dangerous phase of the campaign. As Allied troops expanded the beachhead and established a steady flow of men, vehicles, fuel, and ammunition across the English Channel, every passing day made it increasingly difficult for Germany to reverse the situation. The opportunity to drive the invasion back into the sea gradually disappeared. Historians continue to debate precisely how much Operation Fortitude alone influenced Germany's strategic decisions. Many factors shaped the outcome of D-Day, including Allied air superiority, overwhelming naval support, logistical preparation, and German command problems. Yet few dispute that the deception operation significantly delayed the movement of key German forces during the invasion's critical early days. What makes Operation Fortitude remarkable is not simply that it fooled the enemy once. It succeeded because it exploited expectations already rooted in German military thinking. Pas-de-Calais genuinely appeared to be the logical invasion site. The Allies did not force Germany to believe something impossible. They encouraged them to believe what they already considered most likely. The inflatable tanks eventually deflated. The wooden aircraft disappeared. The fake radio networks fell silent. The Phantom Army itself was never intended to fight a single battle. Yet its greatest victory came without firing a shot. In a war often remembered for massive armies, devastating weapons, and brutal combat, Operation Fortitude demonstrated that carefully crafted deception could shape events just as powerfully as military force. An army that never truly existed helped protect one that did, giving Allied soldiers the precious time they needed to establish themselves in Normandy and begin the liberation of Western Europe.